Yeah. So what a lot of people are doing, and a lot of the big SEOs are doing this as well, is everyone's pushing a ton of content right now that's topically relevant. The more content we have on our site that's topically relevant, the higher we think we're going to be in rankings. So we're pushing a ton of content for interlinking purposes, for silo purposes, uh, more of a corporate term. We're pushing it for like the hub and spoke type method where
Right.
we're pushing, and then AI came in and made it even easier. So people are pushing hundreds and hundreds of pieces of content to boost themselves in ranking, because let's face it, we all have to be topically relevant, right? And we have to win the topical relevance race. And so we've got sites that are just pumping their sites full of topically relevant content
And failing.
and failing. And that is the biggest part of this. So we're pushing as much content as we can, but instead of rankings going up, we're getting caught in updates. We're getting caught in all sorts of things. And we've got keywords going from first page out of the top 100. All right, so now we have sites pushing a ton of content that's fully topically relevant, and entities help us form topics.
So entities, very popular.
Yes.
Everybody wants to talk about entities.
Yes.
And an entity, have come to understand it, is that technically, like when it comes to software tools, I use Cora, that entities are, things that have a Wikipedia page. Now, that gives you a definition of what an entity is, but it doesn't really give you a functional definition of what entities are. So when you start talking about something, and we start talking about, let's get off of air purifiers. Let's talk about growing garlic.
Mhm.
We're going to have things related to probably compost,
Soil.
soil, hilling up a little bit, blanching,
Water.
the bulbs, water, all of these things. If we were talking about, like, let's say you and I were talking about it, and we started and we said garlic in the beginning, but then we never said garlic again in our conversation, but we knew we were talking about garlic.
Mhm.
And so that's like for each topic set, you're going to have a group of entities that when you group them all together, that becomes almost like a 3D version of that topic.
Mhm.
So it's not just that they're entities, it's that there are entities that are related to the conversation. They're related to what we're talking about. So in early days of SEO, we latched onto our keywords,
Yes.
and that told us, kind of like, I'm going to use a phrase here, a Potemkin village, right? So the front facade, everybody knew what we were talking about, but maybe on the back end, too many people would use, it or they or
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
in talking about what they actually provide. So in this case, the idea of these topics, there's a lot of topics that use similar entities. There are some concepts, some topics where you can use different words
Mhm.
to refer to it, and we
Mhm.
both know what we're talking about.
Right.
And so that's kind of what's happening
Right.
in Google in terms of what potentially we need to be looking at.
Yeah. And so we're kind of overlapping.
Right. When entities overlap,
Mhm.
if kind of like if you picture the Venn diagram where it's two circles
Mhm.
over, in each
Mhm.
other, that's almost like the same topic.
Yeah.
But when you see where they overlap a little bit, you kind of can visualize the space between topics
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about pushing a lot of topically relevant content, adding entities into all of that we know are super important to rank in top positions in SEO. But if you're not measuring and taking notice of what's happening while you're doing that, you're going to get yourself into trouble for the long haul.
Okay, so in the case of HouseFresh, I think we've all found those great keywords, that have thousands of monthly searches.
Mm-hmm.
And we think, oh, I'll write a piece of content on this one. And then we find another really great keyword that has a lot of search volume. And we think, oh, I want to write on that one. And then I can rank for that keyword without necessarily seeing that when you go and you look at the SERPs, the search engine results pages, and you look for those terms, do you or do you not see a lot of the same pages show up for both?
I think the question for the audience is, do you check that before you launch new content? All right, Carolyn, so you saw HouseFresh. They released all kinds of topically relevant content, but why weren't they in first and second position? Why didn't those URLs rank in first and then rank in second, maybe even third position? What happened?
Well, there are some filters in place in terms of, like, historically, we've never been able to get more than 2 pages from the same domain ranking for the same search phrase. I'm going to go to my testing background. We would do single variable testing, taking one domain, creating 10 pages where there was variation between them in terms of, let's say, lorem ipsum. They weren't exact replicas, but maybe we used very similar titles, headers, things like that. Going back closer to 2015, you could successfully do that and have Google index all those pages and rank them for whatever fake keyword we were using. And we would pull up 10 results. That changed so distinctly. Yes. And it did it in terms of, like, it was very, very subtle. I remember this is probably 2020, 2021, that we had to add things to make them like real sites.
Yep.
We had to add privacy policies, terms of service, contact us pages, and things like that to be able to even get some of our test pages to index. But that was now multiple domains. The effort involved in testing went up exponentially, whereas previously it was like 10 pages, boom, boom, boom. 10 minutes later, you had your result. At this point now, I know a lot of people think that, kind of like, well, the problem is the SEO.
Yeah, so we have that come up a lot. In fact, we have people talking out of their hat that say it's your SEO that's bad and you should be in first and second position, and they do it all the time. However, those people never show us where they do it all the time.
Well, I think that in some cases, it's almost malpractice to tell people that it's the SEO.
Your SEO is bad.
Because, it's kind of like they don't really know what people are doing. They don't really know what is leading to these issues. And so it's kind of like if you see things that are not happening the way you want them to happen, doing more of what you're doing is not often the most safest.
It's not the answer.
It's not the answer.
It's not the
It's
answer.
not the answer, and it's not safe.
If you're doing something that's causing your results to pop off of the first page out of the top 100, and then you continue to pile more on, that's when you create a bigger and bigger mess or a bigger problem for your site. And it's not the direction you want to go in. So don't listen to the people who talk out of their hats and say all kinds of things and say it's your SEO that's bad. That's actually bad advice.
So I think one of the questions I would want to ask people is, are you using your own content on your own domain to boost other pages?
Yeah,
and
that's a good question.
Just saying what is their, I guess, philosophy or method for interlinking.
Yeah, and I'd like to ask you guys, are you currently using content to increase your topical relevance? Are you adding content to your site in hopes of increasing topical relevance?
So I guess also I would want to know is like, how do you know that you're increasing topical relevance? If you're simply repeating it back again.
That's a great question, because how do we know, or how are we certain? And are you guys even checking?
Is this a lot of work, Marie? I mean, like if people are going to be publishing and generating revenue from sites, would you consider this almost like the bare minimum of the checking part?
Yeah, bare minimum, bare minimum. So if you're running a site as a business, checking and measuring as you go is a must. I know that you can earn a large amount of money from these sites. And so bare minimum is measuring your SEO, checking your SEO as you go to make sure you're not tying yourself up to get caught up in the updates later on.
So I would just like to leave everybody with something to ponder between now and our next video. And I'm going to start it off with helpful content system, helpful content. What could it possibly be working on? I'm probably one of the few people that's saying this out loud. Based on what I'm seeing, I think Google no longer is ranking sites on a page by page basis, but that they are ranking sites, and those sites are a cohesive unit.
That's a big point to bring up towards the end of a video, but if we're no longer page by page, but by a site basis, that changes everything.
Yeah, we could almost call it a domain factor.
All right, so in this video, we talked a lot about topical relevance and entities. And in the next video, we're going to talk about what they actually did on the HouseFresh site and why it didn't work in boosting their rankings.